Before we talk about the trios, let's kick off talking about the new update. We now have 3 new items in the loot pool. We have the lock-on pistol, which isn't in competitive, and we have the Kinetic Blade and the Ranger Assault Rifle, which both are in competitive. Now, first off, the Kinetic Blade, the one we've been waiting for since we saw it in the trailer. It is in the game. They have nerfed it heavily from how it used to be, though. The old Kinetic Blade in Chapter 4 was infinite uses, which made it incredibly strong. Now, unfortunately, it has durability. It only has 20 uses before it breaks and you can't use it anymore. So while it does still have the 3 uses before you get the cooldown, unfortunately, because it's not infinite, it just really isn't worth carrying, including the fact that you get absolutely beamed now if you try to use it in the open. So I think the main use for this weapon is going to be the fact that if you're playing in trios and both your teammates have a Void Oni mask and you can't find one, you pick up the Kinetic Blade, so hopefully you can still keep up with them. In that instance, I think it's better than the Typhoon Blade, but I think in solos, the Typhoon Blade is probably still better because you can move just as far as you can with the Kinetic Blade dash, but you're much harder to hit. But in both cases, it's still just better to run the Void Oni mask. So unfortunately, I don't think it's going to have a massive impact on the meta. It does also only have a 1% drop rate from floor loot and a 3.26% drop rate from chests. Those stats are courtesy of Asarian, so it's also quite difficult to find them, especially if you want to try to get a whole trio's worth of them. So I don't think this is going to impact the meta that much, which you might be happy about. We already have really, really good mobility this season, so I don't think this item was super needed, but I did kind of want it to be more useful. I didn't want just another item in the game. But if you've been struggling to find mobility, maybe you drop it like a more of a shambles split and you have a higher chance of now getting some kind of mobility to carry until you get a refresh. I guess for that instance, it does help, but for the most part, I've watched the eval cup all day today on EU and NA. The only person I saw semi-regularly running it was Clicks, and again, he was only running it because at Warriors, Ryze and Muzz often get the Oni mask, where Clicks had to run the Kinetic Blade. But as soon as he got an Oni mask on a refresh around the map, he just dropped it straight away. I will also mention a lot of people have been talking about the Grapple Blade coming back. I talked about it in previous videos. It was a quest in week 4 of this season, which was involving the Grapple Blade, so we're all sure that it was coming back. They've now removed that quest. So it looks like we will not be getting the Grapple Blade in Chapter 6 Season 1, or at least there's no indicator that it's going to be back in the game at this point. So we're going to be having the Void Oni mask, the Typhoon Blade, and the Kinetic Blade as our main mobility this season, as well as the new Chili Chugs, but again, they're almost impossible to find in full stack, so basically no one's running them either. The same goes for the Ranger Assault Rifle. No one's really using it because it's just worse than the Fury Assault Rifle and the Hollow Twister AR in basically every single way. If you don't want a scoped weapon and you want to have a higher fire rate and spray plays, you're going to run the Fury AR. And if you want to do slow, methodical shots with good damage, you're going to run the Hollow Twist AR. There's just not a single reason to run the Ranger AR over both those ARs. So both unfortunate additions to competitive right now just aren't really going to have any impact, and they're just going to clog up the loot pool. They're not the worst items in the game. I'd much prefer they add items like this than, adding something like the Nitro Fist that just, completely changes the meta and everyone hates it because this season is looking extremely good. But when I saw an update, I thought we might get something that's used a little bit more than both these weapons. I am interested to see if I'll be proven wrong and there's someone like Muzz who's going to run the Kinetic Blade in solos and make it look crazy. Don't 100% take my word for it. If you're using the Kinetic Blade, you find it good and it fits your playstyle, go for it. It is a little bit better for taking height than the Oni mask. You have a little bit more control on it. Maybe in solos, you won't get beamed as heavily if you try to use it in the sky. Trust me, I could be wrong. These are just my first impressions of the weapon after watching the first trio tournaments today. Let's talk about team swaps, and we have some big ones. We have Booga and Threats dropping Reet to pick up Aviv. Now, this has already been a good pickup for them because they went on to win a game in the Eval Cup finals today. As far as why would Booga and Threats drop Reet, they just weren't really performing that well. For a trio of that caliber of so many phenomenal players dropping uncontested Seaport, they should have been doing better than what they were. I kind of saw this one coming. I'm not sure why Booga decided that it was Reet and not Threats, or Threats decided that it was Reet and not Booga, and vice versa, but also it doesn't help that Reet is the only one on that trio that streams, and Booga historically hasn't really played with streamers. So I guess by dropping Reet, it means he can now play with someone who isn't going to stream Aviv, someone who's done really well in the past with, and they're already performing very, very well. So it seems like this makes sense. Also, Aviv not being a controller player could be a factor of this. Aviv has some of the best aim on NA. Playing with Vive and Threats, I don't think Bugha is going to struggle for Surge at all. Out of a drop spot that does struggle a little bit for Surge. Seaport is middle of the map, but you have gigantic mountains all to the north, which is where Peterbot's team is, which you don't really want to be taking a fight or too much bloom battles with them. So there's not a lot of Surge options from Seaport, and it could have been something this team was struggling with, hence why Bugha and Threats wanted to pick up a Vive. But Reed has found himself on a new team. He is now playing with Skittles and Chimp, but after talking to Reed and hearing Reed in the streams today playing the Eval Cup, it doesn't seem like this trio is fully locked in or really confident playing with each other. It's kind of a just for now trio until potentially there's another snakening. Remember, trios aren't locked in until FNCS properly starts on January 29th. So it seems like Reed's pretty confident there is going to be some kind of snakening. Reed, Chimp, and Skittles looked quite good today. They made finals in Eval Cup. They had a game where they could have won the game with a better refresh. So the team is not awful. It just seems from listening to their comms, they don't seem like they're fully locked in with each other. Now, we also have confirmation of Cooper, Vidil, and Sphinx. Vidil is going to be traveling from EU to NA to play with Cooper and Sphinx. He was supposed to already be in NA, but apparently he missed his flight. So he won't be playing the Divisional Cups this week on NA. He'll be playing them from EU. But for all tournaments next week going onwards for the rest of the season, it looks like Vidil will be on NA. They still did make Eval Cup finals, even with Vidil on EU ping, so that trio is looking really, really solid. Now, moving on to the new EU trios, these all happened during the break as well. We have Tayson and Chulex dropping iDrop and now picking up Haris. They're still going to be going the Dam, and they also made finals at Foxy Floodgate. They're looking very, very good. We now have Sky and Scroll picking up iDrop to round out their trios and then dropping Refsguard. As far as Vanya's new trio, we have Vanya, Pixie picking up Marius, which I'm interested to see how that team goes. Vanya has been struggling a little bit so far this season, hasn't really been playing up to a lot of people's standards. Unfortunately for Vanya fans, they ended up going 0-3, I think it was, at their drop spot. They're going Warriors Rest, and they're going up against Predage's team, the Italians, and Vanya's team, I think, only won one of the spawn fights, and they only won it after, I think, Vanya or Pixie crashed. It was a 2v3 and they managed to pull it off, but it wasn't a really dominant showing, but it's their first tournament together. I'm sure when they get more reps in, they get more chemistry. They're looking like a very, very scary trio. And the last NA trio I wanted to talk about was Noxy, Crisp, and Curly. Noxy and Crisp are doing really, really well together when they're playing as a duo. One of the most underrated duos in the world, in my opinion. Noxy and Crisp did well, decided to split, didn't really find the same success playing without each other, and now they're picking up Curly, another very good player who I do really think Noxy, Crisp, and Curly are worth paying attention to.